But I went to I went to go meet her white family in a small town in Ontario called Sarnia, right? And yeah, they're so you know what I mean? They're so small that you know what? They've never seen me before. Yeah, one of her white uncles came up to me. He was like, yeah, what are you like, Chinese? I'm like, I'm Filipino. We've been around for a while. And he goes, well, nice to meet you, Phil.
Because I'm very Asian and very Filipino, so I talk a lot about growing up in Toronto with like Asian parents and stuff like that. And I do like a lot of like observational stuff like that, and especially for Milton, I know it's in the suburbs, so it's very like, cleaner. So I do a lot of cleaner stuff.
Does your audience, like, do you walk into a room when you do comedy shows, and does your audience affect what bits of your routine that you're going to use that night?
Oh, of course, yeah. I take a look. That's why I try to get there early enough to see the crowd to see because like sometimes we go like up north and it's all like I did a show like in Red Bay last month and it was like not seniors but like older older white people and I'm like how am I gonna relate to this crowd? There's like 50, you know what I mean? 50, 60, 60-year olds.
So what
So I
do
have
you,
to
I
like
mean,
cater.
what do you do in that situation though? I mean, there is a generation gap when you play
Yeah,
to
yeah.
that. Do you have a certain routine that you pair? It's like, all right, I'm going into the old age home. Here I go. I'm going to use, these three bits that I always go to.
Yeah. So I do like a lot of more like Canadian stuff. Like I'll talk about like locations like growing up in like Brampton, and they're like, oh yeah, we love laughing at Brampton and stuff like that. Or like talking about like how I don't have kids, but all my friends have kids, and try to relate to them like, as a parent.
Now I got to say, I've seen your routine, and I know how you perform on stage. You are a very deadpan style
Yeah.
comic with a lot of what you do. I'm curious about that though. I mean, look, right there, you just kind of chuckled when I mentioned that. But when you're in the midst of doing your act, what's the key to not breaking on stage, like not breaking out of that on stage?
Well, I like to start off being like deadpan and then kind of like build it up like a kind of like a roller coaster, just so that because if I don't know, I feel like if I'm not if I'm like this like right off the bat, it kind of it kind of gives them this impression like, oh, this guy thinks he's like all that kind of thing, right? But if I'm deadpan, they're like, okay, you know what? We're gonna let. So what I do is I be deadpan and then I let the crowd come to me.
We got here this morning. I was like, tonight's the night. We're gonna make it, Norm. We're gonna perform, 9:30 p.m. Everyone's gonna be drunk and going crazy, You'd be like, Ernie, Ernie, Ernie. Not tonight.
So whenever I have comics on this show, I always like to narrowcast. After all, we are on Halton News. You're doing this show in Milton. I'm sure you
Right.
played Milton before. What is a Milton crowd to you?
Oh, built because I grew up in Mississauga, so all of my friends from Mississauga got too expensive, so they all moved to Milton. So I'm there all the time, and like I've been to Ned Devine's pub, but I've never done a show there. So it's been I haven't been there like maybe 10 years, and like but I remember last time I was there, I was so uh inebriated. So it's gonna be a rude awakening going there to actually work and get paid to be there.
Well, I will say, I think that you will be comfortable with saying the word drunk on the stage and not
Oh,
trip
okay.
over it, which is fine here as well.
I don't know what time
After
the
all,
show is on.
we're talking about comedy clubs. Ernie Vicente is going to be there at Ned Devine's. It is November the 28th. He's one of a few comedians performing that night. Ernie, thanks for doing this and best of luck at the show.
Thank you, Jason.